I expect them to win the season. I expect them to win 8 games.
Okay.
And if they don't win 8 games, I'm not going to be seeing cool. I'm not going to be all smiles and Hallmark cards. I'm going to judge it accordingly. And now that's healthy.
If they don't win, Mike got to go. If they don't win 8, Mike got to go.
My tone going into the next season, if Mike is still here, is not going to be very welcoming.
Right? No.
I think them saying 7.
I'm asking
I don't
you.
think I don't think that they fire him.
Got to go.
I don't think they fire him at 7-5. Or it just
depends
on what the 7 is. I think they should. Okay. I believe they should if he only gets 7.
Okay.
But it probably also depends on. I can see a world where it depends on what 7 games it is.
What 7 games and how the 7 games are
played.
Yeah,
and how the 5 played out. And
if they hit your 8-4 mark, James, but the collection of Miami, whoever else it is, Alabama, Florida, and who was the other?
Clemson.
Anyway, the 4 big teams that they play, if they're losing those games by 3 touchdowns, isn't that a different 8-4 for you than if they're taking those games down to the wire?
Yes.
Yeah. To evaluate.
That means you're not close. That means you're not close to
Clemson.
Alabama's Alabama, but the other 3 are what the fan base would consider rivals. And at the end of the day, those guys are going to always be. You're going to always be competing with them for the best type of players, and you'll never be able to get over that hurdle if you're getting your teeth kicked in.
Yeah, but counterpoint, if you guys are coming off of 2 wins, going to 8, even in a world with blowout losses to those 4 teams, that doesn't or wouldn't represent a step forward, not necessarily back shoulder to shoulder, but that wouldn't be the kind of step forward that would be acceptable for you?
No, not at all. Because 2 wins, again, is an aberration. Again, while you could say, wait a minute, Miami's never had a 2-win season. But they've had a defeated season, correct? Or am I wrong about that?
Had like a losing season? Yeah, we had one a couple years ago. 5-7.
No, not losing. So you've always won more than 2 games. You've never had a season where you won less than 2 games. I don't know. I seriously don't know. What I will say is this: it's not an acceptable thing. Actually, you know what? Don't look it up. The reality is, just like a Miami fan would say, an 8-9 season is not the standard. One of the things that made me like Mike Norvell when he came in, and I don't look at what as a guy who's, even though I'm Jaguar media, I dabble in FSU media. I just happen to know a good amount, and I do what I do. Mike said this, and everybody thinks it was mine, but I got this from my interview with Mike Norvell. Mike Norvell says the standard is the standard. I can adjust my expectations in trying to get us to the standard. Understood. 8 wins is me adjusting my expectations to try to get to the standard, but the standard is the ACC championship. If you play in the ACC championship, you'll go to the college football playoff. So that means you're competing for championships. He has been grossly away from the standard outside of the 10-win season, which if you would have won a couple games, you would have been competing for the ACC championship. Those 2 seasons, your other ones, you haven't done it. That's why Tag was fired. That's why Jimbo lost his mind and his heart or whatever and had to get out of here to go somewhere else. But that's where, when I hear Miami fans say, and I get it, that's the standard. You expect to play for championships. And if a guy can't, so much so that Mark Richt corrected and righted the program in a good direction, and he got fired. After going to the ACC championship or a year?
It wasn't that year. It was the next year, but it was
a year removed. So what I'm
it was a year
move,
and I mean he didn't want to do what it took to move forward.
But you haven't sniffed it since. Well, actually, my bad. That's a lot. Last year you sniffed it. But my thing is, the point is, the standard is here. The standard is the standard. Standards don't move. But what we can do is we can adjust the expectations, but the expectations have to be trending us there. Technically, progress is winning 3 games. If we win 3 games, that's getting us nowhere near the standard. Right. You got to go.
But that's also why I didn't say 3 games. I brought up because it was the hypothetical that was on the table at the time of the 8. So I don't necessarily agree with your view. I do think that 8 with even big losses to the peer level teams, that is a step forward. However, if I will say that I agree. So I don't necessarily agree on surface value, but upon like deeper evaluation, if basically what you're saying is that 8 with the 4 blowout losses to the comparable teams actually doesn't fit in the trajectory of showing that Mike Norvell can lead this program there, then okay, cool.
On top of a myriad of other issues.
Okay.
In particular, how you construct your roster. You know, people traditionally like high school recruiting, even though the transfer portal has made some other things differently. You're not considered an elite recruiter because of how things have finished. Now, you get Travis Hunter, you get some other guys, you'll probably finish with, like, you don't lose KJ Bolden that year. Heck, if you keep Solomon, Trammell, and a lot of those other guys, you probably stay in the top 10. But if ifs were a fifth, we'd all be drunk. You're not known like that as that guy on top of other different things. So like you have to put it in there. And as a guy who's around a lot of high school kids, because between coaching and doing other stuff, you can't get blown out. You can't keep getting blown out by your rivals and expect to get in the hotbeds.
And this is where I was going to follow up with the Norvell and take it from a different angle. This is a guy working on a 6th season. And I was a fairly staunch defender going into the process because I thought he inherited the worst Florida State roster since the mid to late 70s. And he walked right into a COVID year. So that was kind of a waste. But once he got it going, now that we're looking at a 6th season, he basically hit a hot streak in the transfer portal. To his credit, he made good evaluations, and they were able to bring in, you know, the defensive ends and the wide receivers that they were able to. And he hit it for 2 years, especially 1 year. But other than that, it doesn't look like he's built a strong foundation of a program.
And I think that's really where it comes down to. And I will say this, that's why having Gus, that's why having Herb, that's why having Tim, I think they do a pretty good job of evaluating what they like and trying to bring it there, and we'll try to build some stuff. Same thing with you know, what they got going over there on the defense. I don't really know the Nebraska guys as well. But one thing I say is, even in recruiting, when I've been reached out to, or I had some guys that I like that I have a relationship with that it seemed like they were recruiting, all I can tell people is they like what they like. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, then we'll be finding a new coach. I mean, this is new territory for us. Bobby was there for 40. Like, that's all I knew. I still to this day only know 4 coaches at Florida State. So like, I don't know this whole. All I know is this: coaching searches bring everybody money, but winning championships also bring us more money, and it's more consistent. But nothing gets the beat more excited than having to figure out who's going to be the next head coach and who could break that and who could do all of these different things. But I do know that Mike was brought here, and Mike has been given a lot more leverage than his predecessor got. And that's not his fault. I got to tell people all the time, Mike didn't fire Tag. Mike was just hired after Tag was fired for many months. But I do know this: in order to stay at that spot, you have to continue. You cannot rest on your laurels. You have to keep getting better, and you have to constantly do things better than what everybody else does. And